Playing with Power MTG. Powerful cards, powerful formats. Be sure to check out Dragon Shield for all of the best accessories to protect your decks. TCG Player for cards at great prices while supporting local game stores. And Patreon, where you get awesome benefits for your direct support. For tonight's game, we are playing with our patron Steven. He has been tuning his Nymris deck and wants to try it out against the team. So, let's see how it performs tonight. Tier 1 Con in Copenhagen, Denmark is coming August 13th through the 15th. It aims to be the largest CEDH tournament to date with over $5,000 in prizes. Playing with Power will be there to meet our fellow CEDH players and participate in the tournament. Be sure to come out and play for amazing prizes. Links are in the description. Right after Tier 1 Con, we will be having another CEDH tournament on our Discord on August 21st. It is played over webcam and is 100% proxy friendly. All patrons in our Discord are eligible to participate in the tournament. We have set up a great prize structure, including Dragon Shield product for the top 16, Dockside Extortionist for the top 4, and the grand prize, which is a Force of Will. Sign up to our Patreon today and get in on the webcam tournament. Now, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Zach piloting Jhoira, Weatherlight Captain. This is a deck that looks to storm off with cheap artifacts and card draw through its commander's ability. His super depressing opening hand contains Shivan Reef, Sol Ring, Arcane Signet, Dockside Extortionist, and his London Mulligan is a Felwar Stone, Cursed Totem, and a Codex Shredder. Next, we have Ryan piloting the partner pair of Akroma, Vision of Ixidor, and Tana the Bloodsower. This is a stacks deck that seeks to slow down the board with Hate Bears. It then uses Akroma to pump the team and swing for the win. His opening hand contains a Feybarrow Elder, Enlightened Tutor, Thalia Heretic Cathar, Mountain, Plains, and 2 Forests. After that we have Steven piloting Nymris, Una's Trickster. This is a mid-range control list that looks to get value through its commander while policing the board. His opening hand contains a Dispel, Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, Mana Vault, Sol Ring, Mana Drain, Marsh Flats, and his London Mulligan is a Pact of Negation. Finally, we have Adam piloting Edric, Spymaster of Trest. This is a low-to-the-ground deck that plays small evasive creatures and leverages its commander to find and resolve its many extra turn spells. His opening hand contains a Veil of Summer, Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, Cavern of Souls, Flooded Strand, Wooded Foothills, Flooded Grove, and a Nightveil Sprite. Without further ado, let's begin this dazzling, delightful deliberation of dueling dudes. Zach wins the Commander Ban List Trivia and gets to start us off. Zach draws a card for turn and plays a Shivan Reef. He casts a Sol Ring. He casts an Arcane Signet. He passes. Ryan draws a card for turn and plays a Savannah. He passes. Steven draws a card for turn and plays a Marsh Flats. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up an Underground Sea onto the battlefield. He casts a Sol Ring. He follows it up with a Mana Vault. He passes the turn to Adam. Adam draws a card for turn and plays a Wooded Foothills. Opting to do nothing else, he passes the turn. Zach draws and taps his Shivan Reef to cast his commander, Jhoira, Weatherlight Captain. He casts a Chrome Mox. Jhoira triggers and Zach draws. Chrome Mox resolves and Zach chooses not to imprint. He plays a Steam Vents tapped and passes the turn. At the end of Zach's turn, Ryan casts Enlightened Tutor. In response, Adam cracks his Wooded Foothills. He pays a life and fetches up a Breeding Pool onto the battlefield tapped. Enlightened Tutor resolves and Ryan fetches up a Spirit of the Labyrinth onto the top of his library. Adam and Zach look at their draw-enabling commanders and sigh as the turn moves to Ryan. Ryan draws and plays a Forest. He follows it up by casting Spirit of the Labyrinth. Ryan ships the turn to Steven. Steven draws and plays an Island. After considering his options, he decides to pass. Adam draws and plays a Forest. He casts a Nightveil Sprite. He passes the turn. Zach draws and moves to combat. He attacks Ryan with Jhoira. Ryan takes it and Zach ends his turn. Ryan draws and plays a Forest for turn. He casts Thalia, Heretic Cathar, increasing the stack squeeze on his opponents. He ships the turn to Steven. Steven draws and plays an Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, into play tapped through Thalia. He passes the turn. Adam draws and moves to combat. He attacks Ryan with Nightveil Sprite. Nightveil Sprite triggers and Adam surveils 1, choosing to leave the card on top of his library. Ryan takes it, and in his second main phase, Adam plays Cavern of Souls, into play tapped, thanks to Thalia, naming Elf as it enters. He follows it up by casting Priest of Titania. It enters tapped through Thalia as well. Adam passes the turn. Zach draws, curses Spirit of the Labyrinth, and ends his turn. Ryan draws and plays a Wooded Foothills. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a plateau onto the battlefield. He casts his commander, Tana the Bloodsower. Ryan passes. At the end of Ryan's turn, Steven flashes in his commander, Nymris, Una's Trickster. During his draw step, Steven takes the damage from his Mana Vault. He casts Cursed Totem, furthering the stacks at the table even more. He passes the turn to Adam. Adam draws and moves to combat. He attacks Ryan with Nightveil Sprite. Sprite triggers, Adam surveils, and puts Boreal Druid into the graveyard. Ryan takes the hit, and in his second main phase, Adam plays a Flooded Strand into play tapped. He casts a Mystic Remora and passes the turn. Zach draws and plays a Spire Bluff Canal into play tapped. He casts a Dockside Extortionist. It enters and Zach creates 5 treasures. He ends his turn. Ryan draws and plays a Plains. He moves to combat, attacking Adam with Tana. Adam takes it and Tana triggers. Ryan creates 2 Saproings. In his second main phase, Ryan casts Feyburrow Elder. He passes to Steven. During his draw step, Steven takes a damage from his Mana Vault. He looks at his hand and decides to end his turn. At the end of Steven's turn, Adam casts Crop Rotation, sacrificing a forest. He fetches up Gaia's Cradle onto the battlefield. During his upkeep, Adam pays for his Mystic Remora. Adam draws and moves to combat. He attacks Ryan with Nightveil Sprite. Sprite triggers, Adam surveils, likes what he sees, and leaves it on top. Ryan takes it, and in his second main phase, Adam plays a Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, into play tapped. He ends the turn. Zach draws and plays a Fiery Islet into play tapped. Bemoaning the continued existence of Spirit of the Labyrinth, he passes the turn to Ryan. Ryan draws and moves to combat. He attacks Adam with Tana. Adam takes it, and Tana triggers. Ryan creates 2 Saprolings. In his second main phase, he casts Natural Order, sacrificing a Saproling. Mystic Remora triggers, and Adam draws. In response, Steven casts Mana Drain, targeting Natural Order, triggering Nymris. Mystic Remora triggers, but Adam cannot draw because of Spirit of the Labyrinth. Steven looks at the top 2 cards of his library, putting 1 into his hand and Polluted Delta into his graveyard. Mana Drain counters Natural Order, and Ryan ends his turn. At the end of Ryan's turn, Adam cracks his Flooded Strand, pays a life, and fetches up an island onto the battlefield. During his draw step, Steven takes a damage from his Mana Vault. He plays an island for turn. He casts Demonic Tutor. Adam draws a card off of Mystic Remora. Steven fetches up a card into his hand. He passes the turn. During his upkeep, Adam pays for his Remora. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Ryan with Nightveil Sprite. Sprite triggers, Adam surveils, leaving it on top. Ryan takes it, and in his second main phase, he casts a Finehorn Elves. He casts a Siren Storm Tamer. He casts a Mana Crypt. All through, he ends his turn. Zach draws a card, does nothing else, and passes the turn. Ryan draws and starts off his turn by casting his other commander, Akroma, Vision of Ixidor. He moves to combat and Akroma triggers. Thalia and Feyburrow get +1/+1, and Tana gets +2/+2 through Akroma's ability. He attacks Adam with Thalia, Feyburrow Elder, and Tana. Adam takes the massive hit, and Ryan creates 4 Saprolings through Tana. He ends the turn. During his draw step, Steven takes a damage from his Mana Vault. He casts Teferi, Master of Time. Remora triggers, and Adam draws. He passes the turn to Adam. During his upkeep, Adam loses his Mana Crypt roll, taking 3 damage. He pays for his Mystic Remora. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Zach with Nightveil Sprite. He surveils, keeping the card on top. Zach takes it, and in his second main phase, Adam plays an island for turn. He passes. At the end of Adam's turn, Steven activates Teferi, Master of Time. He draws and then discards Consecrated Sphinx. Zach draws, and once again, immediately passes his turn to Ryan. At the end of Zach's turn, Steven activates Teferi, drawing a card and discarding a card. Ryan draws and plays a forest. He casts Rest in Peace, paying for Adam's Remora. In response, Steven activates his Teferi. He draws a card and discards Necromancy. With Rest in Peace still in the stack, Steven casts Vampiric Tutor, triggering Adam's Mystic Remora and his own Nymris. Adam draws through Remora. Steven resolves his Nymris trigger, putting 1 into his hand and an island into his graveyard. Vampiric Tutor then resolves. Steven fetches up a card onto the top of his library and loses 2 life. Rest in Peace finally resolves, exiling all graveyards. Ryan moves to combat and Akroma triggers. Thalia and Feyburrow Elder get +1/+1, and Tana gets +2/+2 through Akroma's ability. He attacks Adam with Tana and Teferi with Akroma, Thalia, and Feyburrow Elder. Adam and Teferi take it. Ryan creates 4 Saprolings through Tana, and Teferi dies. Ryan ends his turn. During his draw step, Steven takes a damage from his Mana Vault. He casts Toxic Deluge, paying 6 life as an additional cost. Adam draws for Mystic Remora. Toxic Deluge resolves, wiping the board. Steven ends his turn. During his upkeep, Adam loses his Mana Crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He sacrifices his Mystic Remora. He draws and casts Tetsuko Umizawa. He casts a Druid's Repository. With Spirit of the Labyrinth off of the battlefield, he finally casts his commander, Edric, Spymaster of Trest. He ends the turn. Zach draws and pays 2 life to cast Jataxian Probe, targeting Steven. He looks at Steven's hand and draws a card. He casts Jeweled Lotus. He sacrifices Jeweled Lotus and recasts his commander, Jhoira. He passes to Ryan. Ryan draws and plays a Sacred Foundry, tapped. He casts Archon of Emeria. In response, Zach taps Fiery Islet to help cast Force of Will, targeting Archon. In response, Steven casts Dispel, targeting Force of Will. Zach responds by paying 2 life to cast Mental Misstep, targeting Dispel. Misstep counters Dispel, and Force of Will counters Archon. Ryan ends his turn. During his draw step, Steven takes the damage from his Mana Vault. He casts Ponder. He looks at the top 3 cards of his library, decides to shuffle, and draws a card. He ends his turn. During his upkeep, Adam loses his Mana Crypt trigger, yet again, and takes 3 damage. He draws and moves the combat. He attacks Steven with Tetsuko and Edric. Druid's Repository triggers twice and gets 2 counters. Steven takes it and Edric triggers twice. Adam draws 2 cards. He passes the turn. Zach draws and moves to combat. He attacks Ryan with Jhoira. Ryan takes the hit and Zach draws through Adam's Edric. In his second main phase, Zach casts Paradoxical Outcome. In response, Steven casts Chain of Vapor, targeting Jhoira. Jhoira is returned to Zach's hand, and Zach sacrifices his Spire Bluff Canal to copy Chain of Vapor, targeting Ryan's Rest in Peace. In response, Adam flashes in Spell Stutter Sprite. Spell Stutter Sprite enters the battlefield and counters Zach's copy of Chain of Vapor. Paradoxical Outcome resolves, and Zach bounces Sol Ring, Arcane Signet, and Chrome Mox to his hand, drawing 3 cards. Zach taps his Fiery Islet to recast Jhoira. He recasts Chrome Mox, triggering Jhoira. Zach draws a card. Chrome Mox enters the battlefield, and Zach imprints Gilded Drake. He casts Sol Ring, drawing through Jhoira. He casts an Arcane Signet, drawing through Jhoira again. He casts a Jeweled Amulet, drawing through Jhoira. He plays a Command Tower. He passes the turn, discarding to hand size. Ryan draws and then recasts his commander, Tana the Bloodsower. He plays a Prismatic Vista. He ends his turn. During his draw step, Steven takes the damage from his Mana Vault. He casts a Mox Diamond, discarding Mana Confluence. He follows it up by casting Windfall. In response, Adam taps his Cradle for 3 green and then activates Nykthos for 3 blue. He casts Snapcaster Mage. It enters the battlefield targeting nothing. Adam then casts Veil of Summer. He draws a card. He follows it up with a Mystical Tutor. He fetches up a Temporal Manipulation onto the top of his library. Finally, he casts Unsubstantiate, targeting Jhoira. Jhoira is returned to Zach's hand. Windfall resolves, and everybody discards their hand and draws 8 cards. Steven plays an island and passes the turn. During his upkeep, Adam finally wins his Mana Crypt roll. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Steven with Edric and Ryan with Snapcaster Mage, Spell Stutter Sprite, and Tetsuko. Druid's Repository triggers and gets 4 counters. Steven and Ryan take it, and Adam draws 4 cards through Edric. He plays a Flooded Grove. He casts a Hope of Girapur. He casts an Eladamri, Lord of Leaves. He follows up by casting Temporal Manipulation. In response, hoping to find an answer, Zach casts Brainstorm. He draws 3 and puts 2 back on top. Then, Temporal Manipulation resolves, giving Adam an extra turn. Adam foretells a card. He casts Capture of Jingxiao. Capture resolves, giving Adam a second extra turn. Adam finally passes to himself. During his upkeep, Adam loses his Mana Crypt roll and takes 3 damage, putting him into the danger zone from his own card. He draws and moves the combat. He attacks Steven with Eladamri, Ryan with Edric, and Zach with Snapcaster, Spell Stutter Sprite, Tetsuko, and Hope of Girapur. Druid's Repository triggers and gets 6 counters. Everybody takes the damage, and Adam draws 6 cards through Edric. In his second main phase, Adam plays an island. He casts a Llanowar Elves. He follows it up with a Baral, Chief of Compliance. He casts the Foretold All Runs Epiphany, creating 2 1/1 flying birds and getting an extra turn. He casts Force of Vigor, destroying his own Mana Crypt and Steven's Cursed Totem just in the nick of time. He casts Part the Waterveil, getting yet another turn. He moves to a second extra turn, discarding to hand size. Finally free of his pesky Mana Crypt, Adam draws and then moves to combat. He attacks Ryan with Edric and Llanowar Elves, Steven with Eladamri, and Zach with Snapcaster Mage, Spell Stutter Sprite, Tetsuko, Hope of Girapur, Baral, and his 2 birds. Druid's Repository triggers and gets 10 counters. Everybody takes the hit, and Adam draws 10 cards through Edric. He plays a Hinterland Harbor. He casts a Spire Tracer. He casts a Carpet of Flowers. He casts a Hull Breacher. Yeah, I know, we get it. Hull Breacher's banned. He follows it up with a Collector Oof. He then casts Nexus of Fate, adding yet another turn to the list. He shuffles Nexus of Fate back into his library and ends his turn, discarding to hand size. Adam draws a card and moves to combat. He attacks Ryan with Edric and Llanowar Elves, Steven with Eladamri, Hull Breacher, and Collector Roof, and Zach with everything else. Druid's Repository triggers and gets 13 counters. Everybody takes their medicine, and Adam declines to draw for Edric. He casts Karn's Temporal Sundering, targeting Ryan's Rest in Peace. Rest in Peace bounces, and then Adam adds a 3rd extra turn to his stockpile. Adam once again passes the turn to himself. Adam draws a card for turn and plays a Tropical Island. He moves to combat and attacks Steven with all of his creatures. Druid's Repository triggers and gets 13 counters. Steven takes it all and dies. Adam declines to draw the 13 cards off of Edric. He casts the classic competitive EDH staple, Notorious Throng, paying its prowl cost. He creates 19 1/1 flying rogues and gets an extra turn. He then moves to his 5th extra turn. Adam draws a card and moves to combat. He attacks Zach with his 19 rogues and Ryan with everything else. They both take it, killing them both, and Adam wins the game. Ladies and gentlemen, what a game. Congrats to Adam on his win. He was able to bide his time through stacks and control before piecing together a win through overwhelming card draw. This game showed just how powerful commanders like Edric can still be. However, it also showed the value of stacks pieces such as Spirit of the Labyrinth. Ryan's ability to restrict his opponent's draw-heavy game plans nearly bought him the time he needed to pull off the beatdown win. The most valuable card was a little harder to decide this game. At first we thought it should go to Spirit of the Labyrinth, shutting off 2 players at once. We then thought about giving it to Druid's Repository, giving Adam so much mana. But in the end, the most valuable card goes to Edric, Spy Master of Trust. Once Edric entered play, its ability quickly steamrolled Adam into a game-winning position through such a large amount of card draw. With a hand continually restocked with small creatures and extra turns, Adam was able to cruise his way to the win. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Tune in next time when we duke it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. It is Patreon shoutout time. I'd like to give a shout out to Nitai Rubinovics. Ooh, that's a tough one. Ivan Thumatarian Descendant, Frapril, Nathan Smith, Elijah Miller, J-Rock, Pyro, Dark, Philip Hickey, Brad Tobin, Sanguinolency, Snarps the Klept, Matt Wingrove, Delphdriz, Dante, Jared Smith, Baby Jeebus, Trey Payne, Rikeko, Greg Babe, Zods, Spielrahu, CZ, Nick, and Liam. Thank you all very much for your support.